Thanks for joining us for Studio 21. For the next minutes, we'll be visiting with the police chief for the community of Tulsa, Oklahoma, Chuck Jordan. Now, you started as an officer in 1969?
Yes, sir, I did.
What was your first assignment?
First assignment, I was in the traffic division, working the evening shift, investigating accidents and writing tickets.
Oh, and then from there, I mean, you spent how many years in this department?
Spent 32.
And then you were also with the Sheriff's Department?
I was. Well, I did 2 years over in Kosovo with the State Department and the UN. And then I came back and worked for the Sheriff's Office for 4 years.
Now, how does that diversity help you? I mean, you know the department, but you've also had that exposure within the Sheriff's Department and international experience.
The international experience was invaluable. You know, I mean, I had everything you would do as a commander or as a manager, you had to do with the complication of language issues, cultural issues. So it was, and of course, it was a very contentious time between Serbia and Kosovo at the time. So I had to deal with international issues. I was a regional commander. The area I was in was bordered by Albania and Macedonia. And I got a lot of good experience. Got a lot of good experience dealing with the military because NATO was over there, and there was a lot of cross-jurisdictional issues, you know, that I had to learn to deal with, and it was a good experience for me.
Well, clearly the violence must have been more intense in a Kosovo situation than what we experience in this country.
Well, it was in certain respects. The crime issues, actually, it's such a poverty-stricken country. They don't have a drug problem. The only drug problem they have is transient drugs, and things come through Kosovo going to Europe from Nigeria and other places in the world. So the drug problem wasn't near the issue it is here. We didn't have a gang problem per se, but we had a lot of problems with Serbs and Albanians. They were always wanting to fight each other. They were always wanting to attack each other. You got to remember, Kosovo was, of course, Serbian occupied basically for years until we got involved in the war in '99, and so the Serbs mostly left, but there were some Serbian enclaves left, and they were always needing protection from the Albanian population, from the radicals.
Is training no matter where for a police officer?
I think so. I think there's probably one of the things I learned very quickly was how proud I was to be a Tulsa policeman, because of the level of training, even compared to the other international officers from Germany and other countries, we were head and shoulders above them.
Now, as long as we're talking about the international scene, you were selected in a select group of police chiefs from across the country to go to Israel recently. And you learned something about law enforcement in a country that really takes it seriously and has some unique challenges. Part of that is counterterrorism. What did you learn?
Probably I learned that everything they do is intelligence driven. You know, for example, Ben Gurion Airport was the easiest airport I've ever gone through. I did not have to remove my shoes. I did not have to remove my belt. Obviously, my luggage was sniffed with a explosive detector. But they do things. They have watchers at the airport that try to identify behavioral issues. They don't do racial profiling. 20% of their population is Arab. And they're very concerned about human rights in Israel, and they don't, just because someone's Arab, they don't become suspicious. What they look for is behaviors, and then it's somewhat like a highway interdiction. You know, you ask the right questions. Where did you come from? Where are you going? Why are you going there? You know, and in about 5 questions, the people who interview at the airport pretty well know whether they've got somebody that's a problem or not.
Now, we started out the conversation with you as a young police officer, 1969. Have the tools changed significantly for an officer in the field since then?
Oh, well, for a field officer, not necessarily, but a lot of the technology is so improved. We have computers. You know, in the car, the radio systems are far better. The technology for investigating crime, of course, is just exploded. Everything from DNA to our fingerprint databases, things that, you know, if we'd had Jean Leroy Hart, for example, if you remember the Girl Scout killing, yeah, had DNA been present, we'd know one way or the other. If we had DNA back then, the Geraldine Martin, who was abducted less than 500 feet from here and murdered. If we'd had APHIS, the fingerprint system, her crime would have been solved very quickly. So yeah, there's a lot of things that have changed as far as technology. The basics, you got a car, radio, a gun if you need it.
And I guess video, how much video is being used by the Tulsa Police Department?
We're doing beta testing right now, and we're going to have them in every car that can stop a motorist, that can engage in a vehicle stop, will have a camera system in it.
Okay, now, and also computers. I mean, computer database, I mean, there's always been the FBI, but it must have improved incredibly over the years.
Oh, it has. Our officers can run all state and local and national checks on anybody from their police car. And that's just amazing technology.
You have a unique perspective on the Tulsa Police Department. And you've seen a lot of changes over the years. Just looking at budgets and some of the controversy with recent court action involving some officers or allegations of officers. Is this the toughest time that you can remember to be a police chief in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Well, I wasn't a police chief when the other chiefs went through it. So, I know Chief Purdy had some tough times. Chief Steege had some tough times. I'm sure Chief Palmer and Diamond both went through a lot as well. I'll just say it's been a very busy 18 months for me. I'm very honored to be able to come in and try to get the ship back on course. And I've got a lot of great help. We've got a really good police department. So my toughest day was my first day, and it's gotten better ever since. So they laid off 120 officers my first day.
Yeah, I apologize for chuckling, but saying the toughest day was that first day. It's like diving into that pool, and you know what's going to happen. You knew a lot of those people that were laid off.
I did.
It was tough. How have you been able to deal with that and rebuild and get more officers and boots on the ground?
Well, with the help, and this is not just talking about the layoffs. We hadn't had an academy for 2 years.
Yeah.
We hadn't had any promotions for 2 years. So our supervisory ranks were dwindling because of attrition. Obviously our field ranks were dwindling. With the help of the mayor's office, we were able to bring all those officers back that wanted to come back, that were laid off. We have a 40-officer academy in progress right now as we speak. They'll be graduating next month. So we're on the right track to get things back.
Well, how did you get on track? What were you obviously had help from the FOP, and you've got a good relationship with the Fraternal Order of Police. What were the other building blocks to get back on track, to find money, to find funding?
Well, we had help from federal grants. We utilized them to the fullest. My take on that is that's our tax dollars. And if we can get some of it back, we ought to get it back. And we have gotten some of it back through the Justice Assistance grants and through the COPS, Community-Oriented Policing grants. The federal government has helped us a lot get back on track. And our own economy has helped us. Things are improving. We're starting to bounce back a little bit. So that's been a big help.
So you feel that it really is on the rebound in terms of the staffing issue?
Oh, I do. Yes, sir. We're looking at at least one more academy around the first of the year, the spring, another 32 officer academy. So that'll come closer to bring us up to authorized strength.
How competitive is it for somebody to get into the academy? What kind of credentials do they need?
Well, they've got to have, first of all, they have to have a 4-year degree. And then there's everything from the initial testing at the Human Resources Division of the city. We have physical testing, and it's very competitive because you remember we got all these kids coming back from the military that are in tip-top shape, and they'll take those obstacle course times and get them down to unbelievable levels because they're in such good shape. So it's pretty competitive, yes, sir.
Well, we talked also about education and that they need that bachelor's degree to even be considered for the police academy. Now, you had an interesting journey educationally. I mean, it wasn't easy. It's tough for us when we get to be adults and we want to continue on that. Tell me about that.
Well, it has been interesting. I went my first 3 years in the police department. I went down to Connors State College and got my associate's degree. I then went on to TU and got about another 50 hours. And then I was raising a family and needing to work part-time jobs, and I didn't continue my education. And when I came back from Kosovo, Sheriff Glanz encouraged me because he wanted me to be able to take captain's test. So I went to University of Phoenix and finished up my hours there. Found out with some chagrin that all the hours I took at TU were, I think, 500 and 600 level classes. They expire after 10 years.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's what I said. And so I ended up having to do almost another 2 years at Phoenix to get my degree.
So it was a struggle.
Well, not really. I mean, you know, your study habits tend to get better when you're older. Your work ethic's a lot better, and I actually kind of enjoyed immersing myself in the basics again.
Now, you had a lot of challenges other than just staffing and budget. Part of the budget issue was that helicopter went down on the ground, the police helicopter. You wanted it back up in the air. Why, and what benefits do we get?
Oh, we get huge benefits. As a secondary apprehension tool, first of all, the only, you know, if we, for example, if we have somebody bail out of a car that just committed an armed robbery or any kind of crime, we have canine officers, which we have an outstanding canine corps. But you know, they often aren't close enough. Often it's a populated area where you really don't want to have a dog out. There's too many scents. There's too many, and as a secondary apprehension tool, it's just you just have to have the helicopter. Lost children. I mean, literally the first night it was back in the air, we had a lost child, and the helicopter found it almost immediately. It's part of big city policing nowadays, is to have an air unit.
Have you brought a different philosophy or renewed an old philosophy for the police department? I've heard you use the term boots on the ground. What does that mean?
Well, that's where everything starts. That's where we succeed or fail, without a doubt. You know, in the 50s and 60s, and even to a certain extent into the 70s, you didn't have to use the term community policing. We did it. We already did it. You got out and you talked to your community. You took community input about crime problems. You tried to address perceptions that maybe weren't correct. You did all the things that we're trying to do now. And my officers have truly embraced this community-based policing concept, and I couldn't be prouder of them. The neighborhood meetings I go to now, people are just overjoyed over the response they're getting from their police officers.
Now, you had a little controversy in terms of a mosque here and asking some officers to be able to reach out to that particular sector of the community. What is the policy for the department when you ask an officer to reach out to the community?
We're not going to exclude any part of our community from that outreach. We're just not going to do it. They're taxpayers. They're citizens. That has taken somewhat of a different shape than it really started out to be. I don't consider Captain Fields to be a bigot. I do consider Captain Fields to be a friend and was a good commander. I'm not really sure exactly where we went wrong in that whole issue. I was not asking anybody to go to a prayer service. I wouldn't go to a Muslim prayer service, nor would I expect a Muslim to come to my church. It was not a tour of the mosque. It was an appreciation dinner for a guy we had caught that had been threatening the mosque, and they were very concerned about it. They've had him there before. We've attended before, and you know, I was, again, very proud of my officers. We had an amazing turnout after that. Nobody had to be ordered to go at all. Officers came and volunteered in droves. I don't know if it was the free food or the sense of community responsibility, but they were there.
Well, I tell you, the food, it can be a good issue, because I remember in college going to the synagogue and going to different churches where they have all this great food. So if there's good food, I'll go there and talk to people.
Yeah, it was you know, nothing beats face-to-face conversation. You know, we're in police cars, we're driving around, we're somewhat isolated from our community, and every time we have an opportunity to go and talk to people face to face, I think that's you know, just, it's an opportunity we should never squander.
How did you feel inside when you saw headlines in the Tulsa World about allegations against officers? I mean, this the Tulsa Police Department is your life.
It is. I grew up here. I love it. My son's here. Some of my best friends in the world are here. And, you know, corruption in any form was never a part of our culture. It would never have been tolerated. You know, obviously I had concerns at first, you know, how deep does this go? How, you know, and fortunately, we found out it was very, very limited exposure. I think everybody, like the community, everyone in the police department went through a grieving process. Citizens may have had bad feelings about cops, but I think if you'd asked most people in Tulsa 5 years ago, do they steal, are they corrupt, they just said no. And we enjoy that reputation. We like that reputation. That's what we are. And I don't know, some of this is somewhat cyclic. I mean, back in '57 we had the liquor scandal. We were one of the few cities our size that hadn't had something that yet. I'm not making excuses for it, but when you have upwards of 800 employees, there's a chance that 1% of them could end up doing something wrong. We also found what the problems were and how to correct it, at least to identify those problems quicker, and it's oversight. We've established a new, and it'll be coming out this week, a new informant handling policy. We got a new cash handling policy to make sure that we have oversight, and that protects our officers more than anything else. They've got a witness, they've got a supervisor there that's seeing exactly what they do.
Over a 40-year period of time, how does this latest situation compare?
It's in what respect?
In respect of just dealing with a community image for the police department.
It's been difficult. It's been difficult. I think everybody that wears this uniform, or wore a green one years ago, I think all of us, again, we felt betrayed by people that did do anything wrong. And again, we don't know that all of them did by any stretch of the imagination yet. We have one conviction out of the officers that were accused. But it is hard. It even requires more activity in the way of community-based policing, so people can see their cops. They're not just reading what's in the newspaper, seeing what's on television. They're actually seeing, here's a person, and I can judge that person. I don't think he's crooked. I think he's trying to do a good job for me.
Most people in Tulsa have gotten the latest impressions from the police department because of newspaper coverage of the trials and television coverage and radio. If you had a chance to just sit down with people one-on-one, what would you tell them about your department?
I would tell them that without a doubt, these allegations even are very much the exception to the rule for our department. It's not accepted behavior in our department. I can tell you right now, if I put money in my pocket at a search warrant when I was an officer, someone would have been putting handcuffs on me. I mean, it's that simple. At the very least, they'd have been going to a supervisor immediately. And that's the way it should be. That's honesty is what we are. And if we can't live that and walk that walk, then we're in the wrong job.
Now, community wants to reach out to the police department at times, in times of a lot of stress for people. Any advice in terms of when they pick up that phone and say, I need help? It's
hard to do, but be as specific about the problem as possible. Many times people will, just say, I've just been robbed, and hang up the phone. Well, to us, that's an armed robbery. What they mean is they just came home, they found their house had been burglarized. So they need to be very specific. My house was broken into, or I've got somebody here that's armed, that's threatening me, or I'm in the back room, and they just need to be as very specific as possible, and not leave anything to the imagination or of a call taker as to what might be happening.
Now, over your career, you obviously remember that the first days on the job,
yeah.
and I'm sure being sworn in as police chief. But in between that, are there images that stick out to you that changed your life?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I was lucky enough to supervise several task forces for the TU rapist, the Brookside rapist later, the Southside stalker. These are predators who went out and victimized people, and it's probably some of the greatest satisfaction I've gotten as a police officer was doing those things, catching those guys, because they're not going to stop. They're going to continue to make victims out of people until they're captured. And there's a lot of real negative images too. I mean, I've worked homicide for almost a decade, so you've got everything from child abuse homicides to elderly people being victimized, and that's hard to deal with.
Now, all of us are going to retire eventually. if and when you retire, what would you like people to say about your tenure as police chief of Tulsa, Oklahoma?
I'd like to have them say that I left the Tulsa Police Department better than I found it.
Chuck Jordan, Police Chief, thank you so much for visiting with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And thanks for joining us for Studio 21.